Hi, I'm not myself. If you're looking to play Rocksmith 2014 on your Mac, you're in the right place. I'll show you everything you need to know to get set up and going from absolutely nothing. I'll cover what you need to buy and where, setting up your guitar to work with a real tone cable, a simple audio interface, and a complex audio interface. Finding, downloading, and installing custom downloadable content songs from Customs Forge, installing the bypass patch to allow those custom songs to load in the game, and then completely removing the bypass patch in the event that Rocksmith won't start for you. Let's get started. The absolute first thing you'll want to do is go to steampowered.com and install Steam if you don't have it already. You'll also want to create an account. The installer will guide you through that process. Next, you'll want to install Rocksmith 2014 Edition Remastered. You'll want to purchase this one that's compatible with Macs. It's $30 right now. You can also wait for a Steam sale to maybe get it a little bit cheaper. Don't worry about the 2014 disk import tool. The previous version of Rocksmith is no longer available, and you can't use the disk import tool to get those songs as well in your game. So simply purchase the game, and then you'll want to purchase the downloadable content for the Smashing Pumpkins Cherub Rock. All custom downloadable content uses the ID for this song to get the custom content loaded into the game itself. So just to make your life easier, purchase these two things. Install the game and then verify that it runs on your machine. I'll go ahead and fire it up on mine. So the game does launch on my machine, and if I go into learn a song and hit the / button, I can search for Cherub Rock and see that it's installed properly. If you can get this far, then you've done this section appropriately. Let's move on to configuring your guitar to work. You have 3 options for connecting your guitar to Rocksmith to be able to play the game. The simple path is simply to purchase a real tone cable. You can find one here. I have the link down in the description. You can find these on sale, anything like that, and it will work fairly well for you. If you want a less simple path, you can purchase a audio interface, a simple audio interface like this Focusrite Scarlett Solo. This is a very popular one in the Rocksmith community, and it's a fairly inexpensive entry point into using an audio interface instead of the real tone cable. And I'll show you how to set that up in a bit. There's also a third option. I have a more complex audio interface. I use one of these Helix floor models, and I will show you how to set that up as well. Let's start with the real tone cable path because it's probably the simplest. I have one right here. I'll connect it to a USB slot on my computer and then show you how to configure it in the game. Now that I have the cable plugged in, let's check and verify that the system is recognizing it properly. We'll do that with the audio MIDI setup. So open your Spotlight search and just search for MIDI and select the audio MIDI setup application. So here are all the devices that are on my machine currently. You can see the Rocksmith USB guitar adapter right here. If you see that in your audio devices, it should work just out of the box, right? You don't need to do anything else. The only thing I will throw in as a caveat is to make sure that the format is set to 48,000 Hertz. All right, so let's fire up Rocksmith and verify that this is going to work. Alright, so once the game is started, go ahead and hit the control key to bring up the path input selection. And you can see down here under input, I already have real tone cable selected. And this is my real tone cable, and you can probably hear it buzzing right now. If I tap it, you know it's hot. Really all I have to do is grab my guitar over here, plug it in, and I can start playing. That's all it is, really. If you've made it to this point, go ahead and skip to the calibration section of this video. So as an alternative, you might already have an audio interface for your guitar that you use to record yourself playing in, like, say, GarageBand or something like that. A very simple audio interface like this Focusrite Scarlett Solo is pretty easy to set up inside Rocksmith. To do that, though, we're going to have to open that audio MIDI setup application again. And I don't have a Focusrite. I do have my Helix device that I'll talk about a little bit later, but we can, for all intents and purposes, we can just act like this is the Focusrite or a simple audio interface. The first thing we'll need to do is create an aggregate device, and we'll say we want that Helix audio in there, or the Focusrite in your case, as a part of that aggregate device. The trick is we need to name it Rocksmith USB guitar adapter. Go ahead and do that, and then let's fire up Rocksmith and verify that it works in the game. Alright, with the game fired up, go ahead and hit the control key on your keyboard to bring up the path input dialog box. And you can see in input, I already have real tone cable selected. And if I've got everything set up, I should just be able to reach over here to my guitar and play it, right? Now, it sounds pretty horrible here, and the reason it sounds horrible is because I'm using the signal processed version of my guitar going into the interface. Yours should sound clean at this point, and if you made it this far, go ahead and jump to the next section labeled Calibration. Maybe you've been playing guitar for a while and you have a fancier audio interface than the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. I happen to have a Line 6 Helix multi-effect guitar pedal that I use as an audio interface, right? And when I set it up, as I did the Focusrite, to show you this in the previous example, you can see that my Helix has 8 input channels. And setting it up this way in the audio devices as an aggregate audio device, Rocksmith is going to, by default, use input channel 1, which I know is my dirty output, or dirty input coming out of the Helix. So it's got reverb and distortion and all of those sorts of things into it. And then Rocksmith is on top of that applying the effects that are inside the game that it wants to be able to use to make your guitar sound like whatever the guitars sound like in the song that you're playing. I happen to know that my Helix input channels 7 and 8 are my dry inputs, meaning the clean signal coming through the application. Unfortunately, there's no way inside Rocksmith to tell it, hey, use channel 7 instead of channel 1 for the guitar. So I have to set up my interface slightly differently. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this aggregate device. To be able to set this up, I have to use some software called Loopback. And it is paid software, but it does allow me to create a fake audio interface device that have the appropriate routes set up. So let me show you how to do that real quick. I'll fire up Loopback. And I'm going to create a new virtual device, and I'm going to call it Rocksmith USB Guitar Adapter. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this pass-through, and then I'm going to add my Helix device, right? So there's my Helix device, and you can see it's automatically routing the Helix channel 1 and 2 to the output channels of this aggregate device or fake device, virtual device, to lines 1 and 2. But that's not what I want. I'm going to select that and delete them. And then I'm going to route channel 7 to channel 1 and channel 8 to channel 2, which will be putting my clean channel out to this device. And then I can close it. Now if we go back and look in the audio setup, we should be able to see a Rocksmith USB guitar that has 2 inputs. This should look very much like the Focusrite Scarlett from the end. So let's fire up Rocksmith and see if we have a decent signal coming through. Okay, with the game started, we can hit control again, and we can see the input is already set to real tone cable. And I should just be able to reach over here to my guitar and play it. And you see, I get a much better sound than when I had it set up previously, right? The clean signal's coming into Rocksmith, and Rocksmith is overlaying a tone on top of it, but it sounds really nice, right? So that is it for setting up. So each time you modify your audio interface in Rocksmith, you need to recalibrate the game to that setup. And I want to show you how to do that in the game. So fire the game up, and sometimes when you start a song, it will ask you to calibrate, you know, like when you first start the game. But if it doesn't ask you, there's a very simple way to do the calibration over again. Fire the game up, hit space to bring up the tools, and go down to Tuner, and then select E Standard. Now, instead of tuning your guitar at this point, instead hit Enter to calibrate. And it will bring up this interface where it asks you to play your guitar as loud as you can, and then it'll tell you to silence the strings, and that is the calibration process. Each time you modify your setup, be sure to come back in and do your calibration. Now let's look at getting and installing custom songs into Rocksmith. Here I'm at customsforge.com and the Ignition 4 search engine. I'm going to sort the songs by downloads, and I'm going to pick one that's really popular, right? So AC/DC Back in Black right here has been downloaded 94,000 times. It has lead, rhythm, bass, and lyrics, and it also shows that it has versions available for Windows and Mac. Right? Some songs don't come with the Mac version. In that case, you'll need to download the Windows version and use a converter to convert it to be Mac compliant. Right? Check us out in the Discord to get tips on how to do that. But for now, let's just keep moving. I want to download AC/DC's Back in Black. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to drop down this menu and choose Open Modal. And the download links are right here. This one is for Mac or Windows, and this one is for Mac. I'll go ahead and download that. And of course, Firefox is blocking my pop-up. What's happening is that link takes me to a Google Drive link for a specific file that the charter has shared via Google Drive. I'm going to go ahead and download that file. And this is the file right here. It's AC/DC Back in Black version 2 _M. And that's important. The _M means this file has already been converted to work on the Mac. If you download a file that has _P, you'll need to convert it before you can actually install it. So I'll go ahead and save that file. And here it is in my downloads. So now what do I do with that downloaded file? To do that, we need to access the DLC folder for Rocksmith, where it actually places its downloadable content. And to do that, I'm going to use a terminal to get it set up so that it's easy to access. Now, this will be the only time you need to use the terminal other than applying the patch a little later. And I'll show you how to set it up so that you can just go directly to the DLC folder. So let me bring up terminal real quick, and I'm going to change directories into this location, library/application support /steam /steam apps /common /rocksmith 2014. I'm going to open that directory up just like this, and here is the DLC folder, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to create an alias for that, and I'm going to drag it over here. Right now I'm going to close the terminal, scary terminal, it's going to frighten us all away, and when I double click here, it brings me to my DLC folder in that deeply nested location, right? And to install the AC/DC song, literally all I have to do is drag and drop it right there. Now I can fire up Rocksmith, All right, so now I can go into Learn a Song, and we see Back in Black loaded right there at the very top, right? Now this is a custom downloaded song, and I've already got it loading into the game and showing it to me in the menu. But if I try to run it, you will see the application actually hang, and it will not load that file. Right? And the reason it won't load the file is because we haven't patched the application to load custom content. We'll do that next. To get custom downloadable content to actually load in the game so you play the songs, we need to patch the Rocksmith executable. And the patch is located on GitHub. You'll find a link down in the doobly-doo down there, directly to the page that I'm showing you right now. There is a bit of a catch though. You need to pay attention to what you're downloading. There are 3 different versions of the patch. If you're running a M1 Apple Silicon based Macintosh that's running Monterey, you probably want to pull down the ARM zip. If you are running a Intel based Macintosh, either Big Sur or Monterey, you'll want to grab the x64 zip. And if you're running an older version of macOS, like something like Catalina or something really old, you'll want to download the x86 version. And I want to point out that the x86 version, we're not quite sure if it works or not, because we don't really have anybody to test it. Usually it's one of the top 2. So if you're uncertain, if you're running an Intel-based Mac, download the x64 version. If you're running an ARM-based Mac or Apple Silicon or M1, download the ARM zip. So I'll go ahead and pull that down. And yes, I want to save it. And then I'm going to open that archive. Just like that. Bring it back over here. And I'm going to run the patch. And it says it can't do it because it's from an unidentified developer. So how do we get around that? I'll go ahead and go to the Apple menu, System Preferences, Security, and down here it says, hey, do you want to open that anyway? Yes. Go ahead and open it anyway. Are you sure you want to open it? Open it. And so I have been successfully patched. That's literally it. You can just close this terminal window, close the security preferences, and now we should be able to run Rocksmith and see it load up. And if Rocksmith gets to this point, you have successfully patched your application, and we can go into Learn a Song, select that AC/DC Back in Black, and this time when I try to play that song, it loads right up. Enjoy! There is one final thing to mention. Suppose you went through all the steps that I just outlined for you and you go to launch Rocksmith and it simply won't start. You launch the application, it starts to fire up, and then everything just goes away, right? That's an indication that the patch has corrupted your executable for Rocksmith. Now what do? I'll show you a real easy way to restore everything back to default. If we go into your library in Steam, right-click on Rocksmith and choose Properties. In the Properties dialog, go to Local Files and click Verify Integrity of Game Files. This will scan all of the files on your local machine, and any that are not what Steam expects to be there, it will replace. This should allow you to launch Rocksmith again and play the game, right? So Perhaps you downloaded the wrong version of the patch and it hosed your Rocksmith install. This is how you get back to a known good state and then go download one of the other patches that might be more applicable to your system and get it working. Hope that works for you. Finally, I want to mention the Customs Forge community. I want to pay special attention to all the charters that create the custom downloads and say thank you for doing that, as well as the community on Customs Forge. It's those folks that basically made all of the information that I am sharing with you today and made it all possible. If you want, go ahead and go to customsforge.com and click the link here to join the Discord. And you can find all of us Mac heads in the macOS channel. Finally, I want to throw some thanks out to Akio and Simitim. I have no idea how to pronounce these names, but those are the two people that, one, figured out how to get the patch working on Monterey on Apple Silicon and actually produced the patch that I showed you earlier that you can download. So if you happen to join our Discord and see those two people around, say thanks to them. Maybe offer to buy them a coffee or something like that, right? So I think that's going to be it, and hopefully this video has helped you get Rocksmith running the way you want it to. Rock on!